When we find ourselves feeling disconnected, cut off, separated, isolated, it has a lot to do with our relationship with nature elements. And cultivating an intimate relationship with nature elements means you never feel alone, and you never feel isolated, and you never feel disconnected. Nature elements are spiritual beings. I'm talking about fire, water, air, earth, and space. And when you acknowledge a spiritual being, appreciate a spiritual being, and show love to a spiritual being, you are so filled. You're filled with love. So take the earth element, for instance. The earth has such a wonderful way of helping us to heal grief. When we turn our grief over to the earth element and the love in the fertile soil and sand and stones, well, love takes grief by the hand and sadness slips away. No, you won't want to bury your head in the sand. You don't want to take your feelings underground, so to speak, and suppress them. But you do want to take them into the earth and compost them. This is how you can restore and refresh and renew. Now, what's really great about having a film help you do this work is that without actually physically being in nature, because you may not be able to access the garden and the woods, you can still, through the film, get all of the splendor of the color and the vibrancy and the life force energy that's coming from the earth. Here's a trailer that shows you, it sort of illustrates the power of what happens when you transmute and renew. Enjoy. From Grieving to Grounding teaches 3 modalities using the earth element to heal from loss. We ground our grief in the soil. We remember earth as ancestor and her ability to hold us and show us that while our grief is personal, it is not unique to us. Collectively, we experience loss. And we use everyday practical methods of healing using earth medicine, like communing with trees. And if you're someone who has heard the wind call your name, or you've danced for the fire while the fire danced for you, if you're someone who blesses water, then you know what I'm talking about. And if all of this is new to you, then welcome. Welcome to the world of seeing nature elements as spiritual beings and knowing that when you acknowledge a spiritual being, when you appreciate a spiritual being, when you show love to a spiritual being, that spiritual being opens up to you and is there in miraculous ways for you. Hi, I am Krista Nelson, self-care guide and shamanic practitioner, also known as Iridescent Moon, a silver lining sentinel. I couldn't be happier to be talking with you today about something very near and dear to my heart, and that's the healing power of nature elements. It's my belief that the disconnect and the chaos that many of us feel right now, the isolation that we feel, is exacerbated by our separation, our perceived separation from nature, and the nature elements specifically of fire, water, earth, air, and space. When we develop an intimate relationship with nature elements, we are able to take better care of them. We're able to take better care of ourselves. When we cultivate intimate relationships with nature elements, we're better able to be the best guardians of the planet. So it gives me a lot of pleasure to talk with you about the specific healing nature of the earth element and how we can use it to heal in the wake of the pandemic, environmental crises, and even racial and social injustice. We are able to go from grieving to grounding using the loving, healing nature of the earth element. When love takes grief by the hand, sadness slips away. And why is that so important? It's important because while we are working so hard to take care of our families, ourselves, we are activists, we are scientists, we are spiritual practitioners, we are business people, professionals, academics. When we're doing our work, but we are feeling angry or anxious or steeped in sorrow and despair because of our multitude of losses, we're not able to do our best work. We're simply not able to show up as the best expression of ourselves. So, grounding our grief in the fertile soil of love, thanks to Earth, is critically important. It's critically important work. It's a part of our self-care work that should not be overlooked. So I've had the honor of leading people through a workshop I call From Grieving to Grounding, where we look at the value gained from connecting and expressing, from releasing the hurtful emotions associated with our grief into the earth, where we lay back into the arms of Earth as ancestor and let her hold us by remembering. And where we look at practical ways to take little bits of earth medicine every day, so we can steady our steps through the forest of healing. I created a film that I call From Grieving to Grounding, and this film becomes an interactive workshop. We gather We honor our grief. We name our losses, be it people in our lives, family members, loved ones, colleagues, friends, strangers even, that we hear about. And we hear about deaths daily. We also name our loss of income, property, marriages, lifestyle. The inability to hug one another is a loss. We grieve this. We honor by naming and speaking to each other about our loss. And then we take a moment with words, colors, shapes, and we express on paper. Some of us dance and tap out a rhythm, but we express our grief. And this is the start of giving our grief another place to live, outside the body. Releasing those emotions in a safe environment, in a safe space, and in a healing manner. After we express in this way, we go through a shamanic practice of journeying, and we collectively visualize ourselves standing around a compost heap where we can toss in the emotions, the bad memories, the parts that we associate with our loss that stand in our way of showing up as our best selves and doing the work that we need to do, and loving in the way that we need to love, and sharing ourselves with each other in the best way. We stand around this compost heap that we envision together, and we let go into the earth all that we can. Sort of a shedding. And we know that the earth will take all that we don't need and make it into something wonderful, right? It will turn it into something nourishing in the future. We don't need to do that work. We can turn that over to the earth to do. And after we compost, we go into another practice, a second practice of remembering. We remember Earth as ancestor. We remember playing in the dirt as children. We remember playing in the sand. We remember what it feels like to hold stones in our hands, or to lay back on stones, to lay back in the sand, to lay on the earth and to be held. To be held there. And we remember all of those that we can think of who've come before us, who have suffered loss. And we are held in their arms. We are held by their stories. We are held and we are loved. And in this way, we begin to heal through this grounding process using earth medicine. And then we get to express again. So now we take whatever we did the first time, where we were writing, we were journaling, we were coloring, we were painting, we were sketching, we were dancing, we were moving, we were tapping out a rhythm, and we add a new layer after this opportunity to release into the compost heap and the opportunity to be held. Now our expression takes on another flavor, if you will, a different vibration, a different frequency. And we share this expression with each other because we're not alone. And knowing that we're not alone is also grounding. We are earth elements, and so we ground each other in the sharing. And after we've had this opportunity to share this new level of expression, we wrap up this interactive film workshop, connecting and expressing. We wrap up by talking about everyday practice, everyday ways to renew, everyday ways to use earth medicine to feel good and to steady our steps along our healing journey. One of my favorite methods that we talk about is visiting trees. The trees have so much healing power. They have so much to offer. And so we talk about how to commune with nature in this way, how to commune with trees. I talk about a time when I was a teenager and I suffered my first major loss. My father died. Massive heart failure is what it was. And my mother and I were home alone with him at this moment, this life-changing moment for all three of us. And I went outside in the darkness and the stillness, and I had a conversation with the wind. This was my first time of communing with a nature element in a way that was so significant and undeniable. And the wind isn't the only one that speaks to us. So trees speak to us also. And when there aren't trees nearby, there may be stones. Stones impart such a stillness and a quiet patience. There's so much to learn from stone medicine, and so much to learn from just simply the ground itself. So walking on the ground, sitting on the ground, laying on the ground if you can, even on a blanket, and just letting Mother Earth hold us. And we talk about other methods as well. Drinking tea, flower essence, the essence of flowers. Beautiful tinctures and elixirs made from flowers that are healing and grounding. And there's so much more. So there's really no limit to the way the earth can help ground our grief. And from grieving to grounding, we get to practice these methods together and make our way through these troubling times with earth medicine. Thank you. Thank you so much for listening, and be well. While all the nature elements have the capacity for healing, the earth element does such a particularly wonderful job at helping us with grief. When we turn our grief over to the earth for composting, for holding us, for nourishing us, well, the love that's held in the soil and the sand and the stones, that love takes grief by the hand, and sadness slips away, along with anxiety and regret and despair and loneliness. Give the earth element a chance and feel better soon.